Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and this is Military Mind. Armed conflicts, defense and security, land, sea and air. We've got you covered. Russian forces attacked Ukraine overnight into Wednesday with 3 ballistic missiles and more than 300 strike drones of various types across the country. Russian drone attacks killed 2 people and damaged residential buildings and parked cars in Zaporizhia. In Dnipro, 3 people were wounded, while 1 man was wounded in the city of Kherson. In Cherkasy, 4 people were wounded and residential buildings were damaged following drone strikes. At the same time, Russian drones targeted critical infrastructure, striking port facilities in the Odessa region and hitting an industrial enterprise in the Sumy region. These attacks follow a previous strike on Dnipro, where 5 people were killed after a cafe and a grocery store were hit. Authorities have declared a day of mourning in the city. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drones struck an industrial facility located more than 1,000 kilometers away from the border in the Russian city of Sterlitamak. Local residents reported explosions over the city and surrounding areas, while analysts say the strike likely hit an industrial facility and a production plant. On the front line, fighting remains intense as Russian forces attempt to deepen their advances in Konstantinivka. Russian assault units are increasingly using infiltration tactics, operating in small groups and moving into dense urban areas, including multi-story buildings. These movements suggest a shift towards more complex, close-range fighting inside cities. Russian forces are applying pressure from multiple directions at once, attempting to stretch Ukrainian defenses and create conditions for a partial encirclement of key areas. At the same time, Moscow's troops are using drones to target Ukrainian supply routes, aiming to weaken logistics and reduce aerial surveillance over contested zones. Ukrainian forces continue to resist these advances, working to contain Russian units and prevent them from securing a stable foothold. Amid these efforts, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky highlighted the growing role of technology on the battlefield. He said Ukrainian forces have recently used drones and unmanned ground systems to capture enemy positions and take prisoners without direct infantry involvement. According to Zelensky, Ukrainian ground drones have carried out around 22,000 missions on the front line over the past 3 months, underscoring the increasing reliance on unmanned systems in modern warfare. The Russian army continues its campaign of infrastructure terror, attempting to trigger a humanitarian and environmental disaster in the Kharkiv region. This time, the Pechenishka Reservoir Dam, a key facility that supplies water to Kharkiv and ensures stability throughout the region, has become a strategic target. Russians dropped 6 guided aerial bombs on the structure. The strike was deliberate. The aggressors sought to breach the dam to flood the areas downstream. Despite the multiple munitions used, the main objective of what could easily be described as a terrorist attack was not achieved. According to representatives of the 16th Army Corps, the structural elements of the Pechenishka Dam did not sustain critical damage that could have led to a breach. The Donetsk region remains the scene of the most intense urban fighting, where the distance between friend and foe is often reduced to the thickness of a wall. During a recent operation to liberate a settlement, an assault team from the Ukrainian Defense Forces conducted a fierce sweep of a building that, in the course of the fighting, had become a trap for the Russians. The Ukrainian defenders followed protocol. The enemy was immediately ordered to lay down their arms and surrender, which would have guaranteed their lives would be spared. However, the occupiers chose a different path and refused, attempting to resist within a confined space. Let's see how the story ends.
Термобар, дай термобар!
Выходи, подойди гранату! Быстрее!
До твоєї смерті 1, 2, 3!
Хоть!
Назад! Бій! Та ще йому Що Ви чули? Він стріляє! Давай термобара, може.
Термобара давай!
Ну нічого, тобі зараз все понравиться. Оце тобі точно понравиться. Ням-ням. Термобарчик. Чисто.
One has to say that this is a very impressive piece of footage. It's atmospheric, eerie even, like footage from a survival horror video game actually. Everything taking place shrouded in darkness. And of course, you know, the inherent danger of confrontations like those, especially inside a ruined building like that. I mean, who knows if the structure isn't about to partially collapse. It could be unsound due to the preceding attacks and explosions taking place there. It also has to be added that the entire confrontation ended with all the Russians being eliminated. In fact, the footage that you've just seen was followed by very graphic pictures of all the bodies being recovered from the site. Now, moving on to our next story. While conducting engineering reconnaissance and monitoring logistics routes, the operator of a Ukrainian ground robot recently spotted a suspicious object on the side of the road. Upon closer inspection, it was identified as a Russian FPV suicide drone. The UAV was designed to remain in standby mode, a so-called Zhdun drone, before the presence of a target triggered an attack procedure. After the target coordinates were confirmed, a Ukrainian hexacopter bomber was launched into the sky. The mission was crystal clear: destroy the suicide drone before the enemy operator could activate it for an attack. And actually, here we have yet another episode where we see drones versus drones on the battlefield. So essentially, testing for a war of the future. The war of the future that's actually happening right here and right now, especially since, according to latest reports, Ukraine is introducing new types of drones, those which are guided by artificial intelligence. Some of the Russians are actually saying they are having difficulties in fighting these off because they cannot be jammed. So very much a situation whereby this technological race is what keeps driving development on both sides of the conflict. And with this, we conclude this edition of Military Mind. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news, updates and commentary.